it's a really pleasant surprise to see that Pep is putting faith in Foden. He's played him in the midfield every single game so far this season, and he has been flourishing.
Well, put it this way, if that game was a dress rehearsal, it was the perfect dress rehearsal, you know, for the coming season. Maybe it sounds harsh, but maybe the De Bruyne injury is the best thing to happen for City and potentially Foden, because he can do, you know, De Bruyne's 32 now. Foden's got a decade on him to go and be the face, that number 10 in midfield. He's capable. We all know he's capable, but it's when he gets the chance, can he take his chances? And he is.
Yeah, definitely. Against Arsenal in the Community Shield, it was his like half turn which like got the team up the pitch. Super Cup was, you know, not as good, but to be fair, no one was really that good for City. And then Newcastle just absolutely ran the show. I can't really recall him like losing the ball, making a mistake. He just seemed so comfortable and at home. And also from like an England perspective, this is brilliant because it's finally making use of his skills. Like we all know, like Foden's like come out multiple times saying, I'm pretty sure my best position is in the middle. It's where he can make the best use of his close control, of his range of passes, of his ability to drive at players through the middle. And even though he's very good when he's played out wide, in my opinion, I think he's almost wasted out wide, and he can do so much more damage against opposition sides if he's allowed to play in the middle by picking up those pockets of space, you know, created by, you know, Haaland stretching the play and, you know, overloading the midfield. So it was a really good showcase.
He's too good to play out wide. He's too good on the ball to do that. Like wingers have their own style, which is usually, you know, being able to cut in, being able to put a good cross in. Foden's too good with the ball at his feet and too good in tight turns to just be left out wide.
Yeah,
you know, just play him in the middle, create the space, and let him do his thing.
Yeah, a player like that in the middle can unlock a defense very, very easily and can create so much. I think he created 7 chances on his own in that game, which is ridiculous.
That is a crazy number.
And also considering the opposition, Newcastle, who were brilliant defensively last season.
It was a nightmare to put the ball past Newcastle defense, and if you've created 7 on your own in the game,
exactly.
So maybe 1-0 really flattered them. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and I think on another day, Haaland still played well because he created space for others, but his finishing boots weren't on. Had they been, I think Foden could have been on for, you know, like 3 or maybe even 4 assists in that game based on the number of brilliant chances he was able to create. And as I say, you want those players in the middle where the play is the most congested. You want players who can unlock teams. That's exactly what Foden can be. And I do really see him being the successor to Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah.
And look, is his game perfect? No, obviously not. But he's only 23 years old now. So 22, 23. So he's only going to get better in that role if you play him in that role.
He's not at his peak yet. And
which is scary.
I guess the advantage you have of a young player is you can chop and change positions when needed because they're not peaked yet. You don't need to just glue them down in a spot. Whereas it's coming to that point now where you glue him down and that's his position for the next 5-6 years, which I think is coming up. You know, in the next couple of years, that'll be his position and he'll play it every week, play 90 minutes. Perfectly.
Yeah, definitely. We saw glimpses and shades of it last season, going in a Champions League final and being trusted to play in that role.
Yeah. And
it's maybe, as you mentioned, Gaskin, maybe the Kevin De Bruyne injury is escalating that process.
Yeah, and let's hope as well for both of us that Southgate sees it as well.
Well, that's the thing, especially. Yeah. I mean, we'll get on to Mason Mount at United, but if potentially Mason Mount struggling this season, maybe Jordan Henderson now in Saudi Arabia, he's got to play 3 midfielders. Obviously, Rice and Bellingham are 2 of them nailed on. I just don't see how Foden can't. If he continues to continue like this.
Yeah, like, right. I just feel like, right, I know we're going across to England here, but I just feel like Rice, Bellingham, Foden is just a perfect chemistry for a perfect midfield. And eldest player there is 24. It's crazy.
Yeah, in my opinion, that would be our best midfield. Yeah. Is it perfect? No, but I think it's better than any of our other options. Definitely. Yes, so I still think we need another midfielder, though, in fairness, just for a depth perspective. Obviously, we're in for Paquetá, but there was a whole issue there. with the alleged betting situation. So I don't know who City can. Apparently, according to the sources, City will be going in for someone else in the middle, in addition to Doku on the wings.
Otherwise, you might get to a situation where Rodri has played over 100 games in 2 seasons, which is not right.
That's not right. And also, with De Bruyne out, currently our only senior offensive midfielder is Foden, really.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of an issue there. As much as I love Foden, want him to play in that role as much as possible.
he's a human.
Yeah, exactly. And so sometimes we might need to play him out wide, like if a winger needs a rest, for example. Yeah. So that's definitely not sustainable in that respect. So Foden, obviously was the main event, and I don't see why he can't just keep going from strength to strength, because I probably shouldn't be using online social media for footballing opinions, but people online and just football fans generally have a very short memory. They only seem to remember sort of like the last season of a player. So, for example, they look at Foden, who struggled last season due to injuries and appendicitis needing surgery, and then maybe they think, he's not really cracked, he's not really kicked on. Is he actually going to live up to his potential? And then he goes and has this start to the season that he is doing.
Every team has that. They'll soon throw in the towel. Like I've seen Chelsea fans who've already thrown in the towel and let Jackson up front after 2 games. So it's just they're just patience.
Yeah,
patience.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'm sure that'll be the message from Pep to Foden: have patience, your time will come. It would have been nicer to have it in better circumstances rather than a De Bruyne injury. But if it means that Foden can lock on that midfield spot, I'll take it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I guess the only question is, Gasky, do you think that when De Bruyne comes back, let's say January, let's assume for argument's sake it's been, like Foden and, like Kovacic in the midfield, those 2 sorts of 8s and 10s. Do you think Guardiola trusts Foden enough to play Foden and De Bruyne in the midfield at the same time in most games? Or do you think that he's going to play one or the other?
I think it'll depend on the situation, because it'll take De Bruyne a few weeks to get back up to batch speed. So I think De Bruyne playing 8 is quite risky. Considering that's the leggy position and he's just come back from injury. So I think Guardiola's happy just for De Bruyne just to play minutes, potentially. And then maybe come April would be potentially where he'd start playing more and more minutes and potentially starting. I just think with De Bruyne's injury, I just think it's too risky to start throwing him in at 8.
Fairs.
Because that's your leggy position. That's the position where you're running. And I just don't see him doing it.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, maybe easing De Bruyne in by having more of a runner alongside him, as you say, maybe someone like a Kova or even Calvin Phillips. Who knows if he's got a future at City? Yeah. Probably not. I'll tell you who does have a future at City, though, Gasky. Joško Gvardiol, who I fell in love with before we even signed him. But again, it's early days, but he's already demonstrating how he's just easily slotted in. Him and Kovacic, actually, they've both easily slotted into the City side. It's quite impressive, really.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't bad in the midweek, but I think it was a bit of an iffy game anyway against Sevilla. But just that one moment where he stops a whole counter attack on his own, he's just an example of that's what you'd expect when you spend that much money. You expect someone who can just do something that you've never seen before. Literally 3 of them, and you just patiently just stopped it, which is incredible. And the fact that it's as if City have built this team, and you feel like the left centre back type position is the iffy one. Ake, as good as Ake is, I don't think he's good enough to be that starter for City week in, week out. Where City want to be the best team in the world and the best team ever. But Vardiol's the perfect player. There was a player out there that can play that left back position and merge into a 3 at the back. Which just landed perfectly on the lap.
Absolutely. And Kovacic just slotted in perfectly as well. And he's proved me wrong, because he is still not as good as Gundogan, that's for sure.
Well, the Kovacic signing was always an odd one, because but you watch him at Chelsea, when Chelsea play, him and Jorginho would just sit there and pass the ball between them for 90 minutes if they wanted to. So asking him to do a bit more is odd, because he's thinking, why would you get him? Because he doesn't do much more. But he's shown that he can do more. And it was kind of Chelsea holding him back from doing that.
Genuinely, yeah.
Yeah,
and I think that's why I was comparing. Not that he was bad at Chelsea by any means, but I'm pretty sure he was not doing what he's doing at City.
He does because he did what he did with Jorginho. They just stood in midfield together and passed the ball about. It was just so slow building up. And I guess that's where you're the fan when you're like, why they're signing him and why Guardiola sat in the chair, because he obviously sees more of it and sees what you're capable of doing, which is clearly that. Yeah,
exactly. And all if I had any criticism of Kovacic, it would just be that, I mean, what Gundogan was brilliant for was his end product in terms of goals, chance creation. If Kovacic,
we said that last week, didn't we? We said last week or the week before, like the one thing he doesn't have is that attacking threat that Gundogan brought, which Gundogan proved at the weekend with Barcelona with an assist. That's just what Kovacic lacks, which will come. I mean, imagine playing 2-3 years playing that kind of deep 8/6 role and having to then go and tell someone you're going to play in bit towards 10. Complete change. So give him half a season, and then I think he'll be right.
Absolutely. And you just mentioned Gundogan there. We will be discussing, each respective club's window when the window has slammed shut. Because so far, don't necessarily think it's been the best window for City, but that's something to discuss in depth at a later date. Is there anything else I would like to say about the City game? Really happy with the win. I mentioned before, wasn't confident going in. 3 points is all that matters. A back-to-back clean sheet. So as it stands, unless Palace get a clean sheet tonight against Arsenal, it'll mean that City, after 2 games, will be the only team to have like 100% perfect defensive record. The current, it's early days, Gasky. The current record for Premier League goals conceded against is 15, which is like Mourinho's Chelsea in 04-05. Yeah. This is, in my opinion, the best in terms of City's sort of like 3-2, 2-3 shape, whatever you want to call it for the build-up. Let's say, Gvardiol, Diaz, Akanji, Rodri, Stones, if everyone's fully fit. Or Walker for Akanji, whatever. In my opinion, that is the strongest defensive unit currently in world football, which might allow Foden and De Bruyne to play together. Is there a chance, Gasky, that we might see that Chelsea record maybe not beaten, because 15 goals is insane, but might City come close to it this season, do you think? Or am I being too optimistic?
I think it's like the old Invincibles at Arsenal. Like you can't say you can see it happening again, But I guess if any of these crazy records are going to get beaten, I think it would be that one.